Hello and welcome to today's painting tutorial. So today we have got a 172 Plastic Soldier Company 3D printed Panhard. So the Panhard was a French reconnaissance vehicle that was put into German service. So as you can see, it's a lovely figure. It's got plenty of details on there. And the details are thick enough that those washes can go through them. Look at all those rivets on there. I mean, it is chockers full of detail. The actual model was very easy to clean up. Very little cleanup involved. This is pretty much how it arrived. I think I had to clean up a couple of little tiny bits of like sort of flash, even though it's not really flash, but yeah, you get my gist. And as you can tell, there are just the typical 3D print lines. However, if you get a thick enough primer, you can pretty much get rid of those, which I didn't do this time around, but I know you can get primers that will do a better job than what I used initially. If you want to find these, you can go to the Plastic Soldier Company shop. Under shop, you can go to Germany. There's plenty of different scales actually of all those 3D printed stuff, not just vehicles too, there's infantry. The vehicle that obviously I'm using is a Panhard, but you can pick whatever you want. So some lovely and unique vehicles on there, so it's really worth checking out, and they've got a sale going on right now. Now I'm going to be painting this in the typical three-tone camo. Now some of this footage might also be familiar to you because I did a airbrushing 101 guide. It's mainly more of a cleaning guide to be completely honest, but I did a 101 guide, and if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link to the video in the description. But I'm going to be using Tamiya paint for this one, and particularly the Tamiya Dark Yellow number 2. That is going to be our base coat. I prefer this one to the original Dark Yellow purely because it's just ever so lighter, and I'm making sure I thin the paint down at about a 2:1 ratio. Tamiya paints are fantastic for airbrushing. Just make sure you thin them down before you use them. You just don't want any of that paint to be a bit too thick and block the nozzle of your airbrush. Now I'm going to prime my vehicle in black before I go ahead and give it an airbrush. You can use any black. I use TS14 from Tamiya. It's just a rattle can black. Opposed to airbrushing, it just saves a little bit of time. And then, as I said, I use that dark yellow too. Now you can use your airbrush to put on some really light layers in certain areas and leave some darker base coat on. That's what that black's creating, like shadows and making your base coat look a little bit darker in those shaded spots, etc., which you should be able to see in this sort of shot anyway. And this is what I'm going for. You can see my face in there, but that's the sort of theme that I'm going for. I'm using the King Country models for my reference for this one. And then for that green, I use olive green plus thinners. Any sort of green. You can use NATO green as well. I kind of regret not thinning the, lightening the green slightly. I would have maybe put in a beige just to lighten that green in. Maybe go 2 parts green to 1 part beige, and then obviously add in a lot of thinners out. Went on a 1:1 ratio because I'm using a 0.15mm needle and nozzle, and that little nozzle is absolutely tiny. So any tiny little bit of debris or paint buildup is going to block that nozzle, and you really want to avoid that, otherwise you're going to be ripping your hair out if you've got any. And then once that's done, I give it a Tamiya semi-gloss varnish, so it's all nice and shiny, and then I add on my decals. And then I give it another Tamiya gloss varnish after that. Once I've added on those decals, I have a decal video, which I will also leave a link to the description for if you're interested in that. I am going to update that video at some point in the future, just to make it a little bit easier to understand with images. Now, I've been enjoying the Tamiya panel line color set. So this is dark brown again. It pretty much just does the work for you. So it's got a tiny little sort of brush on there, and the action of this really just helps that enamel wash flow really nicely. Now there's lots and lots of little rivets on here, and to be completely honest guys, this is a real quick slap sort of paint job, just something that's good for the wargaming table. And I really wanted it for my battle group, Market Garden Germans, which is this is an option for them. So that's what I'm doing. Now once that's done, I used Tamiya. Sorry, no, I didn't use Tamiya. I used the enamel odorless thinner. So Abteilung 502 enamel odorless thinner, and I cleaned it off. In hindsight, being a 3D model, I would have gone with an oil wash and then blended the excess oil around the panels, just because with those little like 3D print lines, the wash did run away and it just took a little bit longer to clean up, and I think it would have just looked a little bit better with an oil wash. Now, if all the surface was completely flat without those, then this wash would have been absolutely ideal. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're washing a 3D model. Then for the tyres on this armoured car, I'm using dark grey. You can use German grey, any sort of like a real dark grey will work nicely. Try not to get any on the rim, which is what I just did then. So just using my finger whilst it's still wet. You can also put a bit of water on that brush to get rid of that if you so want. Then I'm also painting the cannon in that black colour, as well as the machine gun and any other metal objects like their tools, etc. So I mentioned the tools, now we're painting those in flat earth, those wooden handles on those tools. So you can see you've got a spade there, some sort of like pickaxe as well, all 3D printed on, which is really nice. Then for the little exhaust on the side there, which I'm assuming is that's what that is, I'm using burnt umber. So we're going to make it look rusty, but that's for later on. For now, just going to give it a coat of burnt umber. It's a dark brown, very dark brown. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and give it a real quick chip or chipping. So I'm using a bit of foam with German camo black brown, and I'm getting rid of the bulk of the excess paint there so it's not moist, and I'm just going to hit in all the little areas where you think they would be getting quite a bit of wear. So, you know, rubbing up against brushes and having stones flicked up at it, obviously gunshots coming its way as well. So, you know, areas near doors is obviously going to get a lot of wear. People coming in and out constantly, knocking stuff in and out as they're getting to and from the vehicle, the commander's hatch and all of that. You get the sort of gist. And then once you've put that on and you're happy, you can always go ahead and do more. I go ahead and give the normal oil and technical medium, so 1:1 ratio, just a black wash really, of the vents here on the back of the Panhard, as well as any of the stuff that we've just painted, so the spade, the shovel, tyres, etc. So then we go back over all of what we've just done with the original base colours. So for the wood we're using flat earth again, and you can see that I'm just taking my time here, very pointy tip. I've got a video on brushes. I won't leave a video to that in the video description, a link to that, sorry, but you can find that on my channel on what brush I use. It's also the actual brush that I use is in the description, just not the video. And then for another layer I use flat earth and orange brown, and this is all creating like wood grains. At this scale it is definitely overkill, but it can look really good, so I'm just adding in that combination of the two together at a 50-50 mix, and I'm just giving this a second layer before I give it a final highlight of that orange brown, which is what I'm doing right now. So just adding in that orange brown, and you can see that that wood just pops so nicely, and it really complements that grey of the metal without actually highlighting those spades and that pickaxe, the metal parts of those, which is what we'll look at in just a minute. So before we do the metal, I'm going to go ahead and give that little exhaust a bit of burnt umber and orange brown. So it's going to give it that orange rusty colour. And you can see I've got a very minute amount on this real beat up old brush. It's like a semi-dry brush. It's a little bit wetter than a dry brush. But yeah, it's going to give it a really nice worn look. Then I go ahead and give that spade a go over with the original base colour. And same with the pickaxe and the cannon on the actual vehicle. You can see that I'm just painting the bulk of it in there, obviously leaving the very edges in that dark base colour. And then we go over what we've just done. This is our second layer of black grey and basalt grey at a 1:1 ratio. So I'm going to hit just the very tops of these and any other details that I can see, so it's nothing too crazy. And I'm also going to go ahead and do the same with the actual cannon, but I'm only doing a little bit on the cannon here, just in the middle where the two surfaces meet. I'm just painting in the middle of those. And then finally for the metal, I use basalt grey, and this is literally a very, very minute highlight just to get that to pop ever so slightly. You can see that that's really just starting to stand out just a little bit more, which is great. And then with that done, I use the black grey basalt grey that we used just prior, and I get my dry brush, and this dry brush has seen much better days. I get my dry brush and I go ahead and give it a really nice dry brush across those tyres. These tyres have lovely detail on the tread of the tyres, so you really want to make them stand out if you can. And which is what this is going to do. It's going to give that nice worn tyre look to it. Now I want to go ahead and add some streaking marks and grime. So I'm going to use my WW2 502 vehicle weathering and effects set, and I like the blacks. The real dark colours for streets just look fantastic. So I'm using engine grease, and I'm going ahead and adding little dots here and there. I'm using my trusty little pin here. Don't need any fancy tool. And then I'm getting my brush with some WW2 502 odorless thinner on there, and I'm just ever so gently going down in a vertical motion straight down, as if there's some sort of muck or water marks, whatever, rust, whatever you can think of. Just trying to really simulate those just nice little bits of dirt and grime running down. And then that's it. So I decided against filming how I actually weather this Panhard, purely because I want to do a better video on how to weather in the future. So I thought, you know what, I'll save the time and we'll make a more in-depth video on that in the future. So if that's something you really would like to see, please let me know in the comment section. I'd also love to hear from you if you've enjoyed this video, if you're going to be using any of the paints suggested. A huge thank you goes out to my Patreons and YouTube channel members for creating videos like this. A special mention goes to Oscar and Patrick for being those Panzer Aces. You guys are absolutely awesome. I'm going to leave it here, guys. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you at the next one.